So I started the episode off by talking a little bit about my career journey and how I got landed at Barstool. And I find that people are so interested by it, and you're one of the first women to work here. So I want to hear a little bit about your experience with school and then making the transition to Barstool.
Yeah.
Because I find it fascinating.
Yeah. So mine's a little funky. I started working here in February of 2017. I started as an intern, was working for Smitty.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, I'm a Philly sports gal, so I followed Smitty and all of his stuff. So I ended up working for Smitty, and they were doing a morning show at the time. It was called Drive Time. It was him, Riggs. I meshed with that group and started kind of doing stuff with them, which was a lot of fun. But I was in school at Marymount Manhattan, which is in the city on the Upper East Side. It was the second school I was at. I started college at Georgetown. I was there for 2 years, left, took some time away from school. It was more of a, I'm really doing so terribly in school and my mental health is absolutely atrocious. And I was depressed my freshman year of college.
Why? Okay. Because I talk about not being a good student.
Yeah.
And I think
it was like you can't stay here, bad student.
I'm just curious, why were you such a bad student, and were you always a bad student?
No. I mean, I got into Georgetown.
Yeah, Georgetown's
I was
amazing.
I was a really good student. But it wasn't even more. It was less about the school and more about the problems I was going through
Where
personally.
you were,
yes,
in your life. Yeah.
Adjusting to college was really hard for me. All my best friends now are from Georgetown. However, my first year, I really struggled. I had a roommate that I didn't really like, and she was always gone, and I was always alone, and I totally fell into the, wow, everybody else on social media looks like they're having the best time ever. All my friends love college so much. Why don't I love it here as much as everybody else does? Yeah. And in my brain, I always wanted to do something in media, broadcast journalism, something in that world. Growing up, I wanted to be like Erin Andrews. I still do, but that's I was like, no, that's the job I want. So knowing that, I applied to tons of broadcast journalism schools across the country, all the, Syracuse, Penn State, all of those schools. But I come from a long line of Georgetown alumni. My parents met there. My grandpa went there. My aunts.
Wow.
I'm the first grandkid. So when I got in, it was like, you're not going to go? So.
Yeah, it's a pressure.
Yes. And it was funny because I was so adamant about I don't know. I might not go. I don't know. And then when the time came, I was like, well, no, I'm obviously going to go. Mm-hmm. So there was that aspect, and then kind of just the pressures of how I was such a good student. Everyone always expected me to do well. Why am I not doing well now? And then instead of being able to ask for help, I spiraled. I was like, I can't get myself out of this. And then it reached the point where I was like, my family, we sat down, we were like, this is not the right place for you. You got to come home. So I went home. I stayed home for a couple of years. I took a bunch of classes around the New Jersey area to see what I potentially would want into college, because then I was like, I don't even really know what I want. So took some classes at Rutgers, Seton Hall. I bounced around.
I have a question about that period, because I totally get what you're saying, where you're looking on social media and everyone's at pep rallies and enjoying their time, and you're like, wow, I'm not having as much fun as these people. I think I even had a hard time freshman year, first semester, same thing, difficult roommate situation, kind of was like, do I transfer? Do I not? But did it make you feel, I'm curious, because I feel like then moving home, I would almost feel even more jealous that my friends then were doing these things.
It was awful. Oh my, so it was hard. It's hard because you move home and then you're like, well, now I'm the failure who moved home. and you're like, is everyone judging me? Is everyone behind closed doors being like, did you hear that she left school? You know, and
like she didn't do well.
Yeah. And we're from like kind of similar areas in New Jersey, and people talk, and that's like so 100% I had all those problems and all those anxiety issues. I went to therapy while I was home, like the entire time. I found a great therapist who I loved, and I went to her once a week, like when I was home, and it also kind of got to the point where it was like, you just don't really have a choice. Like, you kind of have to go home. This is clearly not working, and I know it's going to suck that you need to go home, but hopefully in the long run, it's the best thing for you. I then ultimately decided I wanted to be in Manhattan. I was like, well, now I'm at the age, like, my friends are graduating,
moving into the city. Yeah,
like I would love to finish school in Manhattan and try and get internships around the city. I feel like that'll hopefully give me a little bit of a catch-up time in the employment world.
Yes.
So I was like, okay, maybe I'll get some job experience. I'll finish school. It is what it is. Then, February 2017, I'm still in school. That's when I started here interning.
So how did you get the internship here?
Smitty posted on Twitter that he was looking for an intern in Manhattan. It's really funny now because it's just, I feel bad. Like the job fell into my lap, and it was like there was not really any competition for it. It was right when Barstool moved to New York. Now, when kids are like, how do I get an internship? How do I do this? I'm like, I wish I could help. Like, I wish I had better advice. Like, because it's so hard now. When I did it, like, Smitty was like, great. He said I was one of the only people who actually sent him like a real email with the resume instead of like an email being like, hey, fuck you, Smitty, hire me. Like, so he emailed me back and was like, come in at 9 a.m. whatever day it was. We'll do drive time. You can sit and watch us, and then we'll talk. He said that he had told like 3 other kids the same thing, like, hey, come at 9 a.m., whatever. No one else showed up at 9 a.m. except for me.
What? That's wild to me.
So like I walked in. I was like the only one. I sat with Smitty. We talked. We chatted. And he was like, great, you're hired. And I started literally that day. I didn't go home. That was like my first day. And that was it.